Hey fifth graders, today we're going to take a look at subtracting mixed numbers. And this is going to be really similar to how we were adding mixed numbers. What we're going to do is we're going to split up our mixed numbers into its two components, which are whole numbers and fractions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and decompose, which means break up the following mixed numbers into those whole number pieces and fractional parts. So if we look at 3 2/3, that is composed of 3 whole things, 1, 1, and 1, and 2/3 of an additional thing. So if we're going to draw this out, we've got 1, 2, 3 whole things and 2/3 of an additional whole thing. 2 1/4 would be 2 whole things, 1 whole thing and another whole thing, and then 1/4 of a thing. So if we were to model that out, we've got 1 whole rectangle, another whole rectangle, and then 1/4, which we can create by cutting something in half and cutting the halves in half, and we've got one of them. Okay, so that's what those mixed numbers look like. So when we're subtracting our mixed numbers, so when we are subtracting them, we can subtract those whole number parts and the fractional parts separately, which is really nice. It makes our lives a lot easier. So what we can do, looking at this picture, what we would be doing is we would be taking 2, so if I had 3 2/3 minus 2 1/4, well, what I would be doing is I would be taking away 1 whole thing, 2 whole things, and then I would be left with 1 whole thing, and then I would need to take 1/4 away from the 2/3. And that's where we're going to do the math to figure out how that would be done and what portion we would be left with by the end of it. So let's go ahead and, using this nice table to organize our work, let's break up our whole number pieces. So we've got 3 and 2, and remember, we're going to be subtracting this time, not adding. And we have our fractional pieces, 2/3 and 1/4. So let's go ahead and start in our fractions column. We're going to work our way from the right to the left, just like we do when we're subtracting multi-digit whole numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at these fractions, and over here, since I have unlike fractions, I need to set up my fraction flag and create common denominators. Let's see, our least common denominator is also our quick common denominator, which is 12 in this case. Multiply by 3/3, 4/4, we get 8/12 minus 3/12. I'm going to subtract my numerators. 8 minus 3 is 5, and I keep my denominator the same. So my answer here is going to be 5/12. 3 minus 2 is 1. So your final answer is 1 5/12. And as we saw up here, we knew we were going to have 1 whole thing left over, and what we did was we took a chunk of this, of the 2/3 away, we took 1/4 of that away, and we were left with 5/12. So let's take a look at another example. We have 5 1/2 minus 4 2/6, so let's break that up into the whole number pieces and the fractional pieces. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start in my fractions column first. So I've got 1/2 minus 2/6. I have uncommon denominators, so I need to create my common denominators using my fraction flag. I'm creating 6 as my least common multiple. So I'm going to multiply by 3/3, that's 3/6. 1/1, that remains 2/6. I'm going to subtract my numerators. I get 1/6. as the difference between those two fractions, and 5 minus 4 is 1 whole thing. So the answer here is 1 1/6. Now let's take a look at a couple more examples on the back side. So this is pretty easy for today because we're able to subtract these really nicely. Tomorrow what we're going to look at is, what if these fractions were reversed? What if I had 3/12 up top and 8/12 on the bottom? We're going to take a look at regrouping, where we have to borrow some fractional pieces from our whole numbers. And I'm not going to get in depth about that now, but that's what we will be looking at tomorrow. So for now, we'll look at these easier examples where we don't have to do any regrouping at all. So let's set these up vertically. And I'm going to look at these separately. I'm going to take a look at just my fractional pieces. Now I need to subtract 1/4 from 2/3. So I'm going to set up a fraction flag because I don't have common denominators at the moment. 1/12 is our least common multiple. We're going to go ahead and multiply by 3/3. That gets us 3/12. Multiply by 4/4. Oh, that's 8/12. Didn't realize we were dealing with the same fractions as the example on the front. So that's giving us 5/12. So I'm going to slide that over here, right under here. 5/12, and 12 minus 7 is 5. Our answer is 5 and 5/12. Let's do another example. 5 and 8/9 minus 3 and 4/6. We're going to go ahead and start in our fractions column first. I need to create common denominators. So set up a blank fraction flag. My multiples of 6 and 9, well, I've got 9, 18, 27, 36. My multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18. 18 is the least common. I'm going to go ahead and take the least common, which means I need to multiply this by 2/2, and I get 16 up top. I need to multiply this by 3/3, and I get 12. I need to subtract. I subtract those numerators. 16 minus 12 is 4/18. Okay, and let's go ahead and simplify because both of those are even, which means I can divide them both by 2, and I get 2/9. So my fractional piece is 2/9. 5 minus 3 is 2, and we're done. I'm going to go ahead and let you solve the next 4 on your own, and you can check my website for the answer key.